Hey everybody, it's Rob Swanson and welcome to this short little training video. Say, listen, over the next couple of minutes, I'm going to teach you exactly how to determine your maximum offer price on a distressed property. What I'm going to do is I'm going to break this down and give you 3 simple steps that flat out always work. I can't tell you how many real estate investors over the years, people that I've trained, taught, have bought my products, or that I've coached that have a hard time figuring this part of the business out. I'm going to simplify it for you over the next couple of minutes. So step 1 is to take a look at a house. Okay, let's say that this right here is the house that you're about to make an offer on. It's a nice, stinky, ugly, boarded up, beat up, completely junker house. And what you need to do is you need to figure out how to get this house into this condition off on the right hand side. And well, maybe you're not trying to get it into exactly the condition that you see in that house on the right hand side. Maybe you want something that looks a little bit more like this. And your objective here is to figure out how to go from the house you see on the left to the house you see on the right. Well, how do you do that? The first thing you have to do is you have to know which of those 2 house options you're actually going for. Are you going for that cute little house with the blue trim, or are you going for this $1 million mansion on the right? So the first step is you need to know what you want when you're done before you even begin. So figuring out the end game, what kind of a house do you want? Do you want a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house? Do you want a basement? Do you want a garage? Do you want a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house? You know, what do you want? Figuring out what you want before you start is the first step in this evaluation process. Now, step 2 then is figuring out what it's going to cost you to go from here to here. Okay, the next step then is figuring out materials and labor and the other associated costs that go into fixing this beater house up and turning it into an absolute beauty. That's step number 2. So step number 2 is you need to determine how much the total fix-up is going to cost you. And finally, step number 3 is you need to again take a look at this end game product. Now that you know what you want to build, when you're all said and done, you know what type of house you're going to end up with, you know how much it's going to cost you to get there, and now you need to ask yourself, what is the after repaired value? What is this house worth when it's all said and done? And what this leads you to then is the ability to determine the after repaired value of that fixed up property. And once you know the questions to these 3 steps, what you can do is you can move on to the formula. Now, let's talk about this. And what I want to do is I just want to grab my pen here and I want to come over here and I want to show you some notes. So in step number 3, we determined this number right here. We determined the after repaired value of the house. This is the fixed up finished value of the house. Now, we also then evaluated what the fix-up cost is going to be. So in step number 2, we determined the fixed-up cost. This was step number 3. This was step number 2. And in step number 1, remember what we did is we asked ourselves, what do we want when we're done? So that was the first process. Now, what this does, the after repaired value minus the fix-up cost equals what's known as the as-is value. Now, the way we get to our maximum allowable offer then is we take the as-is value of the property minus the other costs and whatever your profit is that you want. That equals your maximum allowable offer. See, that's how you determine the amount that you can pay, the maximum allowable offer that you can pay on any particular property. So many people have a hard time in this evaluation process, and I'll tell you, because most people spend too much of their time trying to figure out this number right here. And that's really the problem. The anchor that you always want to go against is the after repaired value of the house. This is a tough number to figure out, but this is a number that just about anybody can figure out, because the condition, here's the real problem, it's the condition of the house, right? The condition of the house, when you're looking at an as-is value, is sort of unknown. You really don't know. And so there's so many, there's too much of an arbitrary range when you're trying to determine the as-is value. Well, so many people then try to run this part of the formula down here. And what I'm suggesting to you is start here, work backwards, use my formula to get the as-is value, and then move on to step 2 in the formula process. Now, let's go on to the next page here, because we have to throw a little wrench into the equation. Now, in theory, the as-is value of a particular property, the as-is value should be, right, the list or the asking price. That's in theory, because in theory, whatever the after repaired value is, right, just remember how the formula goes, minus the fix-up cost, that equals the as-is value. So in theory, the as-is value, if a property is listed by a real estate agent, or if it's being sold by an owner, the asking price or the list price should, in theory, equal the as-is value. Now, is that always the case? Well, obviously, it's probably not always the case. So again, in theory, you have the after repaired value, which is the fixed up value of the house. You always know the condition of the after repaired value because it's the fixed up finished value of the house. The as is value is then after repaired value minus the fix up cost, and in theory that should equal the asking price, but as you're going to see in a moment, it's not always true. And then below that is the wholesale value of a property, or your maximum allowable offer. And really what this range in here does is this allows for all of your costs associated with fixing up the property, holding costs, maintenance costs, insurance costs, costs of money, and your profit. Okay, so your profit is this big range right here between the as-is value and your maximum allowable offer price. Now, in theory, the as-is value should equal the asking price, but many times what you'll see is the asking price is actually listed much too high. In fact, I've seen asking prices on properties that are not in perfect fixed up condition listed higher than the after repaired value, and at the same time I've seen asking prices listed significantly below the wholesale price. And so this asking price range is, really very, very subjective, and it jumps all over the board. So you can never base your maximum allowable offer on the asking or the listed price of a property. It just doesn't work. You need to understand the theories and the mechanics and the facts that are going on behind the scenes. So what do you do? Well, let's take a look at this house, and let's just assume that this was the property that you were about to make an offer on. As you can see, it's on fire, and it's going to be a pretty beat up, distressed house in just a few minutes when the fire department gets there and puts everything out. I mean, this house is going to be pretty well trashed. So instead of trying to figure out what the house is worth in the as-is condition, meaning all burned out and fire and water damaged, the first step is to ask yourself, if you were to buy this house, what would you do to it? What would you fix it up for? What would the final house, determine the final house, what would it be? A 3-bedroom, 2-story, 2-bath with a basement and a detached garage. Answer the question what the final house is going to be in step 1. In step 2, determine the cost of the fix-up. How much is it going to cost you to get it into that fixed-up condition? And then in step 3, determine the after-repaired value of that final house. That gives you the information you need in order to run your formulas and determine your maximum allowable offer. So I hope this training was helpful. You can get more free training, great tips, advice, education, all sorts of stuff at reieducationproducts.com. So again, I hope this taught you something. This is Rob Swanson. Head on over to reieducationproducts.com, and I'll see you there. Talk soon. Bye-bye.